welcome to another edition of Cadence Fishing TV, and today it's a Chappy challenge to catch 50 fish on the link ledger. The link ledger is really becoming a forgotten art. It's a fantastic method that can help you to put a few extra fish in the net. So whether you're a club angler or an open angler, whether you're fishing canals, whether you're fishing running water, rivers like today, it's definitely a skill worth having in your armoury. The first time I ever really made acquaintance with this method was 32 years ago when I was down in Cheltenham working on an evening paper there, and I joined Cheltenham Angling Club, who fished in the West Midland Winter League, and they're up against teams like the Shakespeare Super Team, Cardiff Nomads, Diowa Gordon League. You had anglers like Wayne Swinscoe, Kim Milson, Dave Harrell, Clive Branson, all household names, all fishing against each other in this winter league, which mainly focused on the Warwickshire Avon and the Gloucester Canal. And it was on the Gloucester Canal that I saw a guy from our team putting the method to work. He was in a very hard section, and if memory serves me right, he caught 3 roach that day for about £1.50, and those 3 roach won him the section. And they're all caught down the middle of this big wide canal that's 35-40 metres wide, fishing bronze maggot on a link with a Sigma wand. And the Sigma wand, as a lot of people will know, was developed by Max Winters and Clive Smith in the late 70s. It had very fine glass tips, and it was perfect for picking out shy bites on hard days using gossamer tackle. You know, fine hook lengths of, in those days, I suppose 12 ounce, which is about 0.08 diameter. But as I say, the link is definitely a method on a hard day that can catch you some extra fish. Today I'm on the Southport and District Angling Association length at Church Deeps on the River Ribble. We've had some great help from the bailiff, Stuart Bradshaw. He's a great chap, very friendly, always helpful, full of advice to anglers. He's pointed us in the direction of a peg at the bottom end of the wood, where there's a nice smooth gravel bottom, which is what you need if you're going to fish the link. There are a lot of pegs on the Ribble that are rocky bottomed, and you know, you get snagged in them, and they're not ideal for this sort of work, but this peg, we're reliably informed, there's a nice smooth bottom. So I'd like to thank Stuart again for that. As I mentioned, I'm on the Southport and District Angling Association water at Church Deeps in Preston. There is a free stretch opposite us, and you know that, I'm sure, from seeing 1 or 2 videos we've made over there. But this is a great side to fish as far as I'm concerned. The access is pretty good. You don't have massive walks to pegs, although you do have to negotiate some steps up and down the riverbank. But the beauty of this side is that there is deep water over here. Obviously the river follows the contours of the wooded bank and comes down steeply, and the general average depth is somewhere between 6 to 10 foot down this side. When the river's anything below about ½ metre, there are pegs here that are fishable. When it's above ½ metre, it's hard to fish this side. But as I say, Southport and District have had this water for many years. Before that, he belonged to the Lancashire Fire Brigade service, and some excellent fishing to be had here. And for £65 a year plus a £20 joining fee for a standard senior member, it offers remarkable value, because the club also has great bream fishing up at Rivington and Anglesark, and a cracking stretch of the Rufford arm of the Leeds-Liverpool Canal. Lovely days on the link, perfect. So talking about link fishing, the word finesse comes into the equation, and finesse means an appropriate rod. And for this type of fishing, Cadence offer 2 rods which are suitable. We've got the CR10 10-foot wand, which has very fine glass tips, and we have the CR10 feeder number 2, which is the one I'm using today. This has 3 fine carbon tips of an ounce, ounce and a half and 2 ounce test curve. And as you can see, it's a pencil slim blank, but it has the right attributes. It's got a lovely forgiving action, but it's also got power in the butt section. A lot of guys use these on commercials, have no problems handling carp up to 10 pounds. But for what I'm doing today on the Ribble, where I might encounter a chub up to 4 pounds, roach up to 2 pounds if we're lucky, and a multitude of smaller fish, as you've seen on this video, it ticks all the boxes, it does the job. Moving down, the reel is the CS10 3000. The 3000 size I think is more appropriate for a smaller rod like this, and it just adds balance to the setup. And the reel, as you can see, is loaded with good old 2.6 Bayer pearl on. When you're link fishing, I don't think you need to go stronger than about 2.5 pound breaking strain line. You want the finesse, you want the presentation, and I think if you start using thicker diameter lines, you're defeating the object. Link fishing is about a good static presentation and a little bit of stealth in your approach. It's a method that I'd use when a river's low and clear on a cold day, when the fish are fairly static and don't want to chase baits about. Alternatively, it's a very effective method when the river's bank high and coloured and you're fishing down the edge. But again, like I said, 2.5 pound line, such as this 2.6 Bayer, is about bang on for the size of fish I might encounter here today. We're going to look at the rig now in some detail to help people if you're beginners to link fishing. It's a very, very simple setup. I effectively create a running link ledger using a micro swivel, as you can see here. It's stopped by 2 number 8 shot pinched together. The fact that they're together stops them from moving. And the line I use to create the link, as you can see here, is some diameter 22, which this breaks at over 10 pounds, but it doesn't matter, it's just a link. It's not in any way going to affect the confidence of the fish with bites. The business end is where that comes into things, and the hook length is 0.8 0.12, which is enough for the Ribble. I think 0.12 is getting on for £3 breaking strain. And I have a choice of hooks that I tend to use when I'm link fishing. One is the Drennan Carbon Match, and I've got some pre-tied here. These are on a 0.10 Omni, which breaks at £1.50, and they're 50 centimetres long. And the other favoured pattern I like is the Hayabusa CHK 128 Black Nickel. It's a finer hook than the Carbon Match, if you can see that. When it's hard and bites are a bit iffy, then a finer hook always helps you to catch more fish and attract more bites. The way I set this up is basically to tie the hook length on using a 2-turn water knot. Having shot as the stopper for the link ledger means that I can increase or decrease the length of the line from where the swivel comes to rest against the shot to the hook, so I can have it as short as 50 centimetres, which I guess in old money is just short of 2 feet. And on harder days and in clear water, you can increase the length of that tail to 6 feet or more if you want, and have a very long hook length to fool wary roach. So at the start of a session, I'd typically kick off with a hook length of about 3 feet. So the link would come to stop against a shot 3 feet from the hook. So now I'm going to talk you through how I actually make the link up that slides on the line. First of all, just get a length of your chosen line. In this case, it's 0.22 Stroft. And all I'm going to do with this is double it over, create a small figure of 8 loop, you can see that behind my hand there. We're going to keep both tag ends. We're then going to get a mini swivel. I'll use a slightly larger one just for the sake of demonstrating this. I'm just going to slide the mini swivel onto a baiting needle, attach the loop that we've just created, pull the swivel down, and then I'm simply going to push the swivel through the loop again so that it goes over the barrel and comes down and creates, as you can see there, a swivel with a boom underneath it, which is the 2 pieces of tag lengths of the line that we just bit off before. And now all you need to do is decide whether you're using swan shot or AA shot or BB shot as your weight on the link. In this case I'm going to use AA shot. I'll just shuffle a few out of the tub. I just pinch them on 4 or 5 inches from that swivel. Another. There you have a very effective but very simple link ledger setup, if you can see that, the swivel and the shot there. And all you do is slide that onto your line, put a couple of number 8 shot in front of it, and then tie a hook length on in your fishing. A question people may wonder is why I use a string of non-toxic shot like AA instead of a bomb. And again, the answer is very simple. It's about stealth, really. It's about fooling wary fish, and it's also about creating a presentation where sometimes you might want to drag the maggot up your peg slightly. If you haven't had a bite, you can twitch the bait and you can drag it a few inches to try and incite a bite from a fish. It's a lot easier to drag 3 light shot like 3 AA across the gravel than it is to drag a small bomb like this across gravel. And also it's the fact that when you cast with a link, you make minimal disturbance with the shot as opposed to a bomb, which is, you know, goes in with a bit of a racket, and that can spook fish. So in the same way that on a canal I'd always plumb up using a shot on the hook instead of a big heavy plummet, when you're link fishing, it's about stealth, it's about finesse. The other important aspect when using shot is that it does give you the opportunity to add more shot or take some off. So if the flow changes, if you know, you're on a tidal stretch like we are today, earlier when the tide was in, I had to put an extra AA on, so I had 4 AA on the link, and now that the tide's turned and dropped out, I'm back to just 3 AA on the link. So it gives you more flexibility, more versatility on your presentation. Another item of tackle worth having with you if you're going for a day's link fishing is a few mini feeders. And these are creations that I've either found on car boots or doctored myself and made smaller to carry smaller amounts of maggots. On days when the water's coloured, it's often the case that you need to try and concentrate the fish and find a hot spot in your peg. It's okay feeding by hand with a catapult or loose feeding and guessing where your stuff's going, but there's nothing better sometimes than to just have a 20-minute spell where you substitute the link for a small maggot feeder like these, and it just gives you the peace of mind and the confidence that you're actually fishing where there's some loose feed in your peg. So again, well worth trying to put a little bit of a box together like this with some small maggot feeders in. I know James has talked about them in a video he made called Avoiding a Blank, and again, if we was going on a river and it was out of sorts, I certainly wouldn't leave home without these, so a good little tip there. Link fishing isn't a chuck it and chance it method. It involves a little bit of thought, and the biggest idea to keep in your mind is think float, fish link. And by that I mean, if you were fishing the float, you'd be feeding all the time. You'd be making sure that a constant stream of maggots was going into your peg, either by hand or by catapult. And when you're link fishing, you're effectively presenting a static bait, but you're feeding all the time with maggots to keep a stream of maggots bouncing through the peg. And you just want the fish to pick out the one that's got the hook in it and to attract a bite. So remember, think float, fish link. So I'm going to feed, and because I'm on a peg that's 6 foot deep and heavy water and quite powerful coming through, I'm feeding upstream by a good 15 metres, and that's enabling the maggots to hit the bottom, hopefully around about in front of me or just below me, and bounce through the peg. And I'm casting the link downstream about 25 metres and about 10 metres out from the bank, which is where I'm also feeding hemp and I'm feeding it in probably about 50 grains at a time, and I'm just flicking that out onto a 9 or 10 metre line in front of me. And again, because of the power of the flow, that hemp's going to be hitting the bottom probably about 15 to 20 feet below me, and then just settling down and rolling through a little bit. And that is where I'm getting the bites, down there. So it's very important to just keep feed going through the peg. Working out where to cast is the critical aspect. And because the peg is about 6 feet deep, 10 metres out from the bank, but powerful flow, as I said, I'm feeding upstream with maggots. I'm feeding the hemp in front of me, and I'm flicking the link about 25 metres down the peg and about 10 metres out from the bank. I'm trapping the line and I'm letting that lead drop through the water and obviously come inside a little bit, probably to about 8 metres out. But I'm confident that my bait is funneling through the swim where I've cast the link, and that's proved to be the case because we're getting bites and we're catching fish. Yeah. Nice and steady. Plenty of bites. They may be small fish, but it's a perfect illustration of the method. Now, I know a lot of the viewers of the Cadence videos are probably wondering why I've got the rod pointing down towards the water. And I'm sure you'll have seen videos that James has made where he's fished feeder on the Trent and the rod's been pointing up in the sky. And that's basically because he's fishing at range and he's trying to keep line off the water and balance the feeder so he can use as little weight as possible to keep the feeder in position out in the river. This is a different type of fish in the link. As I said, it's about finesse, it's about stealth, it's about looking for shy little plucks and bites. And because we're not fishing very far from the bank, we can afford to position the rod pointing down towards the water. And because it's a 10-foot rod, we can see every little pluck and pull on the tip and try and react accordingly by hooking the fish. I'm keeping the rod up off the surface completely. It's about 3.5 feet above the surface. I'm on a high wall here, but I'm looking down at the rod tip, and it enables me to keep some of the line out of the water, which hopefully reduces resistance and also enables me to see those little plucks and pulls and read the bite so that I can strike and hopefully hook a fish. Another critical aspect of link fishing is choosing the right tip for the rod in the conditions. Now today the river has about 14 inches of extra water in it above normal, but it is a powerful flow, and this rod comes with 3 different test curve tips: 1 ounce, 1.5 ounce, 2 ounces. If the river had had another 3 foot in it and was ripping through, I'd have used the 2 ounce tip. If it had been lower than this, if it had been at normal level, I might have gone for the 1 ounce tip, but because it's carrying a little bit of extra water and the flow is powerful here, I've opted for the middle tip of the 3. If the tip's too soft altogether, you'll get a really rapid fast pull, and that will be it, and you can't read that. You want the tip to be stiff enough for you to be able to just see plucks and pulls, and when it pulls forward you can pick up the rod and often you'll find that you hook the fish. So tip selection's important. It does come with experience, and I think that 1.5 ounces today is about right for this peg. Another question you may be wondering is, at what point do you hit the bite? Well, if you saw that then, I got a very fast jab pull. Now then, it pulled again and I managed to connect with that time. But it's all about feel and practice and your sixth sense on the day, effectively, of tuning into the fish and how they're feeding, and just working out how to hit the bites. It can be frustrating at times, but like I said, if you're missing a lot of bites, you can adjust 1 or 2 things. You can either try a bigger hook, or you can shorten the hook length down so that you're in more direct contact, and the fish might bolt against the weight of the link. So they're all aspects worth consideration. Here's a little tip for you that can be effective if you're missing bites. I use stots, and I'll pin the hook down to the bottom by putting 2 or 3 on the hook length if necessary. I've got some number 9 stots here, if you can see. They're very easy to put on, but crucially they're easy to take off using shot pliers. So if it doesn't work when you experiment with this trick, you can easily take them off without damaging your hook length. You don't have to rip the entire hook length off and put a new one on. So for the sake of illustration today, I've just attached a number 9 stot about 4.5 inches from the hook, but I'm also going to put another one on just above that. So we'll have 2 number 9 stots on the line, equidistant apart. So this one again is 4.5 inches above the one nearest to the hook. I managed to find the slot. And then you've got a distance of about 12 inches to the 2 number 8 stopper shot that is stopping the link from sliding down onto the hook length. So let's just give this a try, see what happens, see if it improves the ratio of bites to hook fish. It may well do, it may not, but you don't know until you experiment and try these things. And as I said, experimentation when using the link is all important. So there you have one straight away on the red and bronze maggot with the 2 number 9 stots positioned on the hook length. Something well worth experimenting with. A lovely roach, and that's a stamp of fish you eventually get on the link ledger. Bait wise, for a day on the link, you're looking at maybe 2 to 3 pints of maggots to feed. So again, that illustrates the point made earlier that it's a busy method that you need to keep feeding little and often. The bait for loose feeding is some maggots that I bought a week ago, so they're a week old. They've been in my fridge at home, they've got used to being chilled down. I've dyed them myself, bronze, a few reds in there, kept in maize meal as you can see. The hook maggots I bought yesterday, they're brand new, they're less than 4 or 5 days since they came from the bait farm. They've got big feed spots. Again, they're dyed bronze with a few reds in there, you can see the big feed spots on them. And again, just kept in maize meal to clean them off and degrease them. That's important, you know, you want quality bait for the hook. I don't think the loose feed's quite as important, but that's how I do it anyway. The other thing just to mention is that as a change bait, I've got some pinkies, and you know, pinkies can be 2 or 3 weeks old. It doesn't really matter. They seem to live forever, don't they? But if it's very hard and bites are very difficult to come by, sometimes single pinky or double pinky might get you that bite that you're looking for, especially in a match when, you know, you're looking for extra fish just to keep something going in the net. And finally, the other thing that I'm feeding in today is hemp, but obviously that isn't a hook bait. That's just to loose feed as a supplement to the maggots. It's like anything. If you're going roach fishing, you need hemp. If you go roach fishing without hemp, it's like leaving home and forgetting to put your underpants on. So I always take hemp with me. By and large on the Ribble, whether float fishing or ledgering, I find a combination of a bronze and a red maggot to be very reliable usually. The roach in this river seem to like red maggots particularly. What a cracking Ribble roach. A lovely way to end a session on the link ledger. Well, the link ledgers worked very well today and we've exceeded the 50 fish challenge that Chappy set. Quite pleased with that actually. There's 1 or 2 nice fish in there. It's a method that's well worth having a look at, so bear in mind, link ledger, great on a hard day. Thanks for watching.